This has not been a good month for free speech. The Babylon Bee is censored on Twitter for calling Admiral Rachel Levine a man, which he is. The Christian Post, which is among the largest Christian journalism platforms in America, is also censored for the same. Now, thankfully, both of these platforms are boldly standing their ground in refusal to delete the tweets, despite the limitations that Twitter has placed on their accounts. Now, the Babylon Bee and the Christian Post are among a growing list of influencers who are being censored simply for speaking basic truths, and not even in a hateful way. Among the list of growing influencers is Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and others. Again, not in a hateful way, just giving basic truths that we all learned in school. Again, this has not been a good month for free speech. Granted, the past decade hasn't been a good decade either. And sadly, as is evidenced by Yale law students earlier this month, some of America's future litigators are not giving us much reason to be optimistic. People and platforms are being censored simply for speaking truth. Now, I don't know a more appropriate expert to talk on this matter, given the fact that she's more than just a legal expert by the books, but she has tangible experience in landmark free speech issues over the last several years, and was involved in a frightening matter at Yale Law School earlier this month. Kristen Waggoner serves as general counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom, a Christian legal firm who has, since 2011, argued successfully, won 13 cases at the United States Supreme Court. They're a fantastic freedom-loving, religious liberty-defending organization that every Christian, if not every American, should appreciate. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, some of these SCOTUS cases were led by you. You were like the chief representative on them.
That's true. Yes. We've had 12 victories since I've been here, and it's just been my privilege to be able to serve with this great team.
All right. So how long have you been with Alliance Defending Freedom now?
2013.
Okay.
So almost 10 years.
Okay. So recently you were involved in an issue on the campus of Yale Law School, where you were just one of two members of a panel who were it was like multi-ideology. You know, you had your conservative and then you had your liberal, but you were talking about free speech. Despite the fact that it was a fair, objective approach, it didn't end very fairly. It didn't end the same. Can you elaborate on what happened there?
Well, it ended up with the co-panelists and myself being escorted out by police into a police car for our safety. I joked with our team this morning, it's the first time I've been in the back of a police car, hopefully the last time as well.
Yeah.
But essentially, we were brought in by a student group at Yale, and we were supposed to be modeling civil dialogue between two groups that are ideologically opposed on most issues. So it was Monica Miller who was there. She would describe herself as a liberal atheist from the American Humanist Association. And then myself with Alliance Defending Freedom, and I would say that I'm a conservative Christian.
Yeah. So you had someone on the right, you had someone on the left. Both of you agreed on the principles of free speech that you were talking about, which was Uzabunam versus Prochaski, right? A case that... Now, didn't you argue that one?
I did have the privilege of arguing. Uzabunam's a mouthful, so we just refer to it as Chike's case. Chike was a student who was trying to share the gospel on his college campus, and he was censored twice by school. And essentially the ruling from the Supreme Court was an 8-1 ruling that basically said when the government violates our civil rights, it doesn't get a free pass to do that. Even if we can't prove financial harm, we should still be able to file a case, file a claim against the government to stop them from violating our rights. And that's something that both Monica at the American Humanist Association agreed to with us, but a number of other left organizations signed on to briefs in ADF's favor in that case.
Yeah, I mean, the demographics of the court are certainly not 8-1, so the fact that you have an 8-1 case does say something about what some people on the left believe about free speech, to be optimistic. So it was you, a conservative Christian, and then a liberal atheist on the panel. And then you had a professor or a faculty member there who was trying to calm the students down, saying, hey, we're supposed to be able to come together and have civil dialogue. How did that make you feel? I mean, I understand it was frightening, you having to be escorted away by police. But what does that say about the litigators of tomorrow? These weren't freshman students, from what I understand. These were, they're done with their undergrad. These are the lawyers of tomorrow. What does that say about the state of litigators for America?
It's concerning. I think what's even more concerning is Yale's response to it. We were heckled. We were called all kinds of names that I won't repeat, obscene gestures. They were pounding on the room. They would walk in the room and then out of the room, and they were pounding on the outside walls of the room, shouting down speakers. The way they treated their professor who was moderating it was deeply disturbing. And there's a video I know that's on the web about that. But I guess I would say the video that shows how they spoke to their professors was probably one of the least volatile moments of the time that we had. You can only imagine what happened when we tried to get into a substantive discussion and I was trying to speak. And it just went on that way for about an hour and 15 minutes. I think in terms of what it says about the future, we need lawyers, jurists, we need legislators and corporate executives that are willing to engage with people and ideas that they might disagree with rather than use belligerence and intimidation tactics. And that's what we saw that student mob of about 120 kids take. That's essentially what they were engaging in, was a mob rule. And as I said, what was most concerning even above that was that Yale is allowing itself to essentially be ruled by this student mob. They didn't condemn the students. It wasn't the students who were asked to leave. It wasn't the students who were escorted by the police off the premises or out of the classroom. It was Monica and I at the end that had to take that police escort. And I was glad for that security. I was thankful to Yale for that. I was thankful to the moderator for doing her best, to try to rein in the discussion. But what I didn't know at the time was that there was a dean that was in the room the whole time, and that she could have taken steps, that there was some physical threats that were made as well. And I would say the fact that after this all happened, Yale essentially said security wasn't needed, and again, did nothing to punish these students at all. And that's the most disturbing part of what happened, I think.
It sets a terrible precedent when you can tell students, the lawyers of tomorrow, that they could behave in an unruly, rule being the key word there, unruly fashion, and get away with it. Disrespecting authority, disrespecting rules. What is law school all about at that point? Like, why are they paying the money? Why are they spending the time studying? Why are the professors putting in the effort into being their coaches? It throws everything off. It completely dismantles the purpose of law school, in my opinion. Well, we really do appreciate what Alliance Defending Freedom is doing. You talked about how a lot of students are being unfortunately trained in really bad ways to be lawyers, but ADF has the Blackstone Fellowship. Am I saying that right? It's Blackstone Fellowship?
Yes, and we also litigate more cases protecting student rights than any other organization. So we want to stand with the students at Yale, stand with the students at the public institutions, and continue to advocate for their rights on campuses around the nation.
Yeah, I actually had the privilege of moderating a panel with 3 of your clients, and then Tyson, who's is he still the chief? I don't know all the terms. He's the chief counsel for the Center for Academic Freedom. Did I get that right?
He is the director of the Center for Academic Freedom, which has ranked up there we have about 430 wins now on behalf of different students. So we need to teach our kids to stand up for their rights, and we need to ensure our institutions embrace a culture of free speech.
I sit there, I say that's great that there's that many victories, but it's also indicative of how bad it is that we even need those fights, why those fights even need to be taken up. I have a question about Monica, your opponent, if you will, on the panel. I don't know if I would call her an opponent because it sounds like she was in agreement with you on free speech. Were any of the threats directed at her? Was any of the opposition directed at her?
Yes.
It was.
In fairness, most of it was directed at me because I had the conservative ideology. I dared to come into the room with that, even though the whole panel wasn't even about that. It was supposed to be on legal remedies. But with Monica, the students were just really vicious towards her in suggesting that she shouldn't even be there. She shouldn't have even been willing to be on a panel with someone who she disagrees with. And the idea that you wouldn't be civil to someone in the profession when you're in a profession that is about and is built on being able to engage with your opponents in a civil way, even when you vehemently disagree with the positions they're taking.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, we admire your courage, and we admired everything that you and Alliance Defending Freedom is doing. Final question for you is, what is your advice for Christians, young Christians today, who have some desire to be involved in politics or the judicial system?
follow Jesus. I think that we get so caught up in what this cancel culture looks like or what career steps that we should take next that oftentimes we put off courageous decisions because we think that by doing that, by not speaking out, somehow we'll have a bigger opportunity in the future. And that's just not true. God directs the steps that we have, and in all moments of our life, he asks us to be faithful, and he gives us these, what I call Esther moments, to stand up and to speak and to be winsome witnesses for Christ, and he will take care of the rest. He will open doors. He will close doors if you give yourself and your future to him. And that's what I've seen play out in my life as well.
Well, Kristen, you are an Esther among us, and I appreciate your courage and everything you're doing for free speech and for religious liberty. I certainly look forward to seeing more work that Alliance Defending Freedom does. And I'm also excited for the young lawyers and the young lawyers-to-be who are looking to you and ADF as an example.
Well, thank you. Thanks for all the great work you're doing there at Standing for Freedom Center.
All right, ma'am. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.